My name is Corinne Vega, and the last thing I expected after 7 years of quietly paying my parents' mortgage was to be labeled the villain. But I wasn't just labeled, I was betrayed, erased, and pushed into the kind of silence that only comes after your own family decides you're disposable. The beginning of the end started on a rainy Thursday afternoon when I overheard my name through the crack of the hallway door. Not in the kind of way you'd hope, prideful or affectionate, but the opposite. Dismissive, sharp, as if I were a burden someone couldn't wait to be rid of. "She's always been the freeloader, you know that." My mother's voice pierced through the wall like a knife. I froze outside the den, groceries still in my arms, heart hammering in my chest. "You and your sister did what you had to do. Corinne just tags along and throws money around when it's convenient for her. It's not like she's ever really contributed to this family." I didn't drop the bags, though every muscle in my body was screaming to let go. I just stood there, silent, invisible, absorbing every word like poison. And then Travis laughed. My younger brother, the golden child. "Well, she doesn't have a family of her own. No husband, no kids. Maybe she thinks paying the mortgage gives her purpose." I turned and walked away, not because I was weak, but because I had to. I was afraid if I stayed a second longer, I'd shatter. That night, I didn't confront them. I didn't scream or throw the truth back in their faces that, for the past 7 years, I'd been covering the mortgage they couldn't afford. That I'd said yes to every emergency, every short month, every last-minute bill they forgot to mention until it was on the verge of default. Instead, I sat on my bed with the lights off, staring at the automatic payment confirmation on my banking app. I'd set it up in 2016 after Dad's heart attack and the market crash wiped out half their retirement. They'd never asked, not directly. But Mom hinted and Dad sighed heavily at the dinner table, talking about how the bank was circling like vultures. I stepped in, quietly. They let me. And now they had the audacity to call me a freeloader. The next morning, I canceled the payment. It should have felt like revenge, or at least liberation. But all I felt was hollow, like I'd handed over the last piece of something sacred and gotten nothing in return but silence and the sting of being misunderstood. Days passed, then weeks. No one noticed the payments had stopped. Or maybe they did and decided not to say anything, hoping I'd feel guilty and resume the role they'd cast me in. The dutiful daughter, the financial fix-it-all. It took exactly 2 months before the cracks started to show. A voicemail from Mom, half panicked, half accusatory. "Corinne, the mortgage didn't go through. Did you forget something? I mean, I know you're busy with your big job and your big life, but some of us still rely on each other. I didn't." Call back. Instead, I wrote everything down. Every payment I'd made, every month I'd covered. I wasn't being petty. I was preparing for war. It wasn't long before I found out just how far they'd go. It started with my credit, an unexpected drop. Then a call from a credit union I'd never used before, asking about a personal loan, application under my name. I hadn't applied for anything. My stomach turned cold. I pulled my credit report. There it was. A $40,000 personal loan taken out 3 weeks ago, co-signed by my father. Co-signed. My heart stopped. I called them immediately. No answer. Not from Mom, not from Dad, not from Travis. I drove to the house, my old house, determined to get answers. When I got there, the door was open and laughter spilled from the kitchen. They were hosting guests. Guests. While I stood outside in the rain, fists clenched, pulse racing. When Mom finally came to the door, her smile dropped the second she saw me. "You shouldn't be here right now," she said curtly. "You took out a loan in my name," I snapped, unable to contain the fury anymore. "You forged my signature." She didn't flinch, didn't even look surprised. "We needed options," she said, as if that explained everything. "You walked away, Corinne. We had to do something." I looked past her into the living room. Travis was lounging on the couch, a new gaming console on his lap, laughing like nothing mattered. "I was never part of your plan," I whispered. Mom's gaze hardened. "You always thought money bought you respect in this house. Maybe now you'll learn it doesn't." That was the moment I realized something I should have seen years ago. My role in this family wasn't daughter, it was ATM. Useful when needed. Silent otherwise. Disposable when inconvenient. I walked back to my car soaked, shaking, and more determined than ever. This wasn't just betrayal. It was war. And they had no idea who they were up against now. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's face at the door, calm, collected, almost smug. Not a hint of remorse for what they had done, not even fear for being caught, just that blank, exhausted disappointment she had mastered my entire life. It used to destroy me, that look. I used to change myself over and over just to escape it. But not this time. By morning, the rain had turned to fog. A gray, low-hanging mist clung to the streets as if the world itself was holding its breath. I sat at my kitchen table in a hoodie and slippers, staring at the loan documents I'd printed out at 3 a.m. I had highlighted every signature, mine and the fake one they used to impersonate me. I didn't recognize the handwriting, but it didn't matter. They knew enough. They had enough of my old tax forms, my social security number, my bank info. I'd handed it over willingly, years ago, when helping them figure things out. Funny how trust can be weaponized so easily. I opened my laptop and created a folder titled Restitution. Inside, I began compiling 7 years of wire transfers, labeled and time-stamped, bank statements, mortgage records, even the birthday cards I used to send, stuffed with checks they never acknowledged but always cashed. I wasn't documenting this for revenge. I was documenting it because I had to remember. I needed to build a timeline not just for the lawyers I was about to hire, but for myself. To prove to the most silent part of me that I wasn't crazy, that it happened, that I gave and gave and gave, until there was nothing left of me in that house. I called the credit bureau next, placed a freeze on everything, filed a fraud alert. Then I called the bank. Explained calmly, methodically, how someone had stolen my identity and co-signed a loan I never agreed to. They asked for verification. I provided everything. They asked if I wanted to escalate. I said, yes, all the way. And then I made one more call. To a woman named Dana Carter. She was a finance and family attorney who used to live down the hall from me in my old apartment building. We'd once shared Chinese takeout and too much boxed wine while talking about our dysfunctional upbringings. I remembered her saying, "When family steals from you, it's not just about money, it's about reclaiming power." I needed that power back. When she answered, her voice was calm and curious. "Corinne? Wow, it's been years. You okay?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "No, but I'm ready to be." By noon, we were sitting across from each other in her downtown office, sunlight filtering through the blinds, a quiet hum of confidence filling the space. She didn't judge when I handed her the flash drive and told her everything, how I paid the mortgage, how they used me, how they forged my name, how they were now trying to sell the house behind my back. She didn't flinch. She just nodded, took notes, and then said, "We'll start with a cease and desist. Then we file for restitution. And if they've put the house on the market, we freeze that too." For the first time in weeks, I exhaled. When I got back home, that evening my phone had blown up. 17 missed calls. Most from Mom, a few from Travis, one from Dad. I didn't listen to a single voicemail. I just opened a new note and titled it, "They always call when it's too late." The next morning, the war went public. It started when Dana's letter was hand-delivered to the house. Cease and desist. Formal demand for an investigation into mortgage fraud and identity theft. a request for immediate halt to any sale proceedings of the property. I didn't hear from them directly after that. Instead, they responded the way cowards do, through other people. An old neighbor texted me, "I just ran into your mom at the store. She said you're trying to take the house. Said you've gone off the deep end. Is everything okay?" I didn't reply. Then a coworker stopped me in the break room. "Hey, I saw something weird on Facebook. Travis made a post about family betrayal? Mentioned sisters who think money makes them better?" Still, I said nothing, because I knew what was coming next. And I was ready. That weekend, they tried to twist the narrative. A carefully curated post from Travis's account, complete with nostalgic photos of family Christmases and birthday dinners, captioned with vague references to people who forget where they came from, and those who tear down their own blood. The comment section was exactly what you'd expect. Sympathetic strangers, distant cousins, even church acquaintances chiming in with variations of "praying for your family" and "hope your sister finds her way back to God." What none of them knew, what they weren't supposed to know, was that this was a deflection. A distraction from the fact that my name was on record, my money had built their stability, and they had tossed me aside like a broken tool the moment I stopped being useful. I could have responded, could have posted screenshots, shared the receipts, the proof, but I didn't, not yet. Because when the truth finally comes, I want it to be undeniable. I want it to hit like a storm they can't spin away. Not a messy fight online, but a revelation they can't delete. So I waited, and while they raged and posted and tried to reframe the story, I got stronger, sharper, and more dangerous. 3 days after the cease and desist was delivered, my parents showed up at my job. I don't mean a phone call. I don't mean a warning. I mean they physically walked into my building, my place of work, like they had every right to be there. I was in the middle of reviewing a project proposal when Candace, our front desk receptionist, buzzed me. Corinne?" she said, her voice hesitant, almost nervous. "Your parents are here, and your brother too." I froze. I blinked at my screen like the words would shift into something that made sense. "Here?" I asked. "At the office?" "They're downstairs." Causing a bit of a scene. A knot twisted deep in my stomach. "I'll be right there." I didn't rush. I walked slowly, each step deliberate. But inside, I was trembling. Because I knew them. I knew they weren't here for a conversation. They were here for a spectacle. And worse, they were here to punish me for daring to make things public. By the time I reached the lobby, the security desk was surrounded by a small crowd, colleagues, interns, a few curious bystanders peeking from behind cubicle walls. And right in the center of it all was my mother, standing like a righteous martyr in a navy trench coat, arms crossed, lips tight. My father stood beside her, looking tired, unsure. And then there was Travis, pacing, agitated, arms flailing, as he spoke with fake outrage to anyone who would listen. "She's trying to throw our parents into the street," he shouted. "This is elder abuse. How can someone so heartless work in a place like this?" My chest burned with a quiet fury. I stepped forward, voice clear and steady. "That's enough." The entire lobby seemed to pause. My coworker's eyes flicked between me and the trio. Someone whispered behind me, "Is that really her family?" Travis turned, and when he saw me, he immediately started performing again. "You seriously have no shame, do you? Coming after your own parents? For what? Money you already got back. 100 times?" My mother jumped in, her tone sharper than glass. "We came here to speak like adults, Corinne, but apparently that's not possible with you anymore." I smiled. It was small, cold. "You came here to humiliate me, at my job." Her eyes narrowed. "You humiliated us first." Miss Green, our HR director, appeared from behind the elevator, bank like some corporate guardian angel. "I'm going to have to ask you all to leave. Now." "She's our daughter," my mother said, as if that explained the chaos they brought into a professional environment. "Not here. She's not." Miss Green replied, her tone firm. "Here, she's our employee, and right now you're trespassing." My father, to his credit, looked ashamed. But it was far too late for guilt to matter. Travis puffed up like he was about to argue, but Miss Green didn't flinch. She signaled. Security and 2 men in black polos stepped forward. "You should be ashamed," Travis barked at me as he backed away. "You owe us everything you have." That was the moment I lost whatever scraps of restraint I had left. "No," I said loudly, clearly so everyone could hear. "You owe me. I paid your mortgage, I saved your credit, I built your safety net. And this is how you repay me? By forging my name and selling the house behind my back? By slandering me at work?" The silence in the lobby was louder than his shouting. My mother's face flushed. My father looked away. And Travis, for the first time, had nothing to say. They left, but the damage was done. The next few days at work were awkward. Whispers, sideways glances, a few questions I couldn't dodge. "Is it true? Are they really selling your house? Did they fake your signature?" I answered nothing. Not because I was ashamed, but because I was focused. I was already building the next step, and then it came. The retaliation. Travis posted a YouTube video. The thumbnail? A tearful close-up of him with the words, "She betrayed us." The title? "My sister stole our house and ruined our family." He didn't hold back. In a shaky voice, he told their version of the story. That I was manipulative. That I had cut off utilities out of spite. That I was greedy. That I used their love as leverage. He even showed a screenshot of one of my texts, cropped, of course, to make me sound vindictive. Then he played a voice recording, heavily edited, where I said the words, "You brought this on yourselves." Which, to be fair, I had said. But the part before it, "You forged my signature and now you're acting like I'm the problem," was conveniently omitted. Within hours, the comment section blew up. Wow, how could she do that to her parents? She's clearly after the house. She's disgusting. I hope karma finds her. I watched it once, just once. Then I clicked report and closed the app. I wasn't going to fight fire with fire, not yet. Instead, I called Dana and said 3 words. "Let's go public." She didn't ask for clarification. She just said, "Okay, but we do this right, with proof." So that night, we filmed it. No filters, no tears, no drama, just facts. I sat in front of a plain backdrop, looked straight into the camera, and began. "My name is Corinne, and for 7 years, I paid my parents' mortgage. Every month, quietly, consistently, without asking for recognition. But when I stopped, because of lies, theft, and manipulation, they retaliated. Here's what really happened. Then I showed them everything. The bank transfers, the mortgage receipts, the text messages, the forged documents, the real estate listing, all of it. And finally I said, "This isn't about revenge. This is about truth. You don't have to believe me, but I'm going to show you why you should." We uploaded the video and waited. The morning after the video dropped, I woke up to the sound of silence. No buzzing phone, no anxious email pings, just a stillness that almost felt wrong. I lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, bracing myself for whatever storm was coming next. Because if I knew anything about my family, it was this. They never went quiet unless they were plotting something louder. I pulled my phone off the charger and tapped the screen. My YouTube video had 43,000 views. In less than 12 hours, the comments were flooding in. "She's got the receipts. I believe her." Wow. 7 years of payments and they treated her like that? Travis is finished. What a coward. It should have felt like victory, like some kind of redemption. But instead, I felt numb. Because this wasn't a fight I had ever wanted. I just wanted truth, fairness, to be seen for what I actually did, not whatever twisted version they decided to sell. By the time I got to work, the air felt different. People nodded at me in the hallway. A few even smiled like they were seeing me for the first time instead of through the lens of gossip. Candace brought me a coffee without being asked and whispered, "You did the right thing." I smiled, but only halfway. Then Miss Green called me into her office. She didn't say much, just offered a quiet acknowledgement of what had happened, and a short line that I'd remember forever. You don't owe anyone the comfort of your silence anymore. After work, I went home and sat in my living room, watching the sun drop below the city skyline, casting long shadows across the floor. I hadn't heard a word from my parents. Not a call, not a text, not even a denial, which, somehow, was worse than anything else. Until the envelope came. It was left in front of my door. No stamp, no return address, just my name, written in block letters. Inside was a typed letter. 1 page, no greeting, no signature. You think you're smarter than us, but you've only made it worse. This isn't over. You'll regret this. I didn't panic. I didn't call the police. I just folded the letter neatly, slid it into my severance folder, and emailed it to Dana. That night, something shifted. Because the fear they had once used to control me, the fear of disappointing them, of being exiled from the family, of being seen as the villain, it didn't stick anymore. The narrative was mine now. And the more they tried to flip it, the more desperate they looked. By the next morning, Travis's video had been deleted, not retracted, not clarified, just gone. His entire channel was locked. His sponsors, those few small-time brands that gave him affiliate codes, had quietly pulled out. One even posted a statement, "We do not condone deception or financial manipulation of any kind. We are no longer working with Travis Calderon." And still, my phone stayed quiet. It wasn't until the 3rd day that my mother finally reached out. It was a voicemail. 36 seconds long. "You've made a spectacle of our lives. Do you really think any of this is worth it? Your father hasn't eaten in days. He's been humiliated at the golf club, all because you couldn't just let things be. We raised you better than this." No apology, no explanation, just guilt, twisted into a blade, aimed straight at the part of me that still cared. I didn't reply. I forwarded the voicemail to Dana. Because here's the thing no one tells you. Walking away from a toxic family doesn't come with closure. It comes with more tests, more traps, more moments where you question whether the freedom you fought for is worth the loneliness that follows. But that weekend, I found something unexpected. Peace. I walked into the bakery near my building. A little hole-in-the-wall place run by a retired couple from Vermont. The wife, Iris, recognized me instantly. She leaned in close, her flour-covered hands resting on the counter. "I saw your video," she said. "I don't know the whole story, but I saw how brave you were, and I just wanted to say, you deserved better. You still do." I blinked. It hit me harder than I expected. The kindness of a stranger. The validation I'd begged for from people who were supposed to love me. I bought a scone, tipped more than I should have, and walked out feeling, for the first time, a little more whole. That night, as I organized my documents, a new email came through. Subject: loan confirmation. It was from a bank I'd never interacted with. I opened it. The words blurred at first, but then my brain caught up. Loan application. $25,000. Co-signed. My name, my social security number, my old tax records. I froze. I hadn't applied for a loan. I hadn't co-signed anything. And the signature? It was mine. Or rather, a version of it. The loop was off. The angle tilted too perfectly. A signature only someone else trying to be me would replicate. My hands trembled. They hadn't just stolen my credit. They were trying to bury me in debt. Identity, theft, fraud, a forged financial document submitted in my name. And that was the moment the story changed forever. Not just a betrayal. Not just a feud, a crime. I picked up the phone and called Dana. My voice was calm, but my heart was steel. Change of plans, I said. We're pressing charges. And this is where the real battle begins. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with me. Because what happens next, it doesn't just change my life, it ends theirs. The bank didn't ask questions, not right away. Just cold, mechanical steps. Please verify your identity. Can you confirm the buy? Last 4 digits of your social security number? Have you ever authorized this transaction? I sat in my home office, the glow from my screen washing over the scattered documents in front of me, and every answer I gave felt like I was chipping away at a wall someone else had built in my name. No, I hadn't authorized the loan. Yes, that was my SSN. No, I hadn't applied for a line of credit at a bank 2 states away. They escalated the case in less than 15 minutes. And when the woman on the phone finally said the words, fraudulent signature, I didn't feel relieved. I felt enraged because someone in my own bloodline had taken my identity and turned it into a financial weapon. But even then, I didn't want to believe it. Even after the mortgage theft, the betrayal, the lies, some part of me still thought, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was a clerical error. Maybe it wasn't Travis. Maybe it wasn't Mom. Maybe someone hacked my email or got my documents through some dark web rabbit hole. That hope lasted exactly 3 hours, because that afternoon I got a call from Dana, my lawyer. You might want to sit down, she said, her voice clipped, serious. I was already seated, my heart doing the kind of jump you only get when you're inches from uncovering. A truth you can't unsee, she continued. We pulled the application data from the loan. The IP address used to submit it matches the same one used to list the house on Realtor.com. My breath hitched. I didn't have to ask whose it was. I already knew. Travis. Of course it was him. The irony wasn't lost on me. He couldn't manage to upload a YouTube video without begging for likes, but he could organize a digital paper trail with just enough finesse to commit financial fraud. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because sometimes rage twists itself into hysteria. Later that night, I drove. No music. Just the low hum of the road beneath me and the sound of my thoughts spiraling. I didn't know where I was going until I pulled into the driveway of the house. Their house. The one I had funded for nearly a decade. The one now being quietly sold behind my back while they played the victims online. I got out of the car and walked straight to the porch. There were no lights on. For a second, I thought no one was home. But then the door creaked open. It was my mother. She froze like she'd seen a ghost. Her face, once full of tight-lipped judgment, cracked for the first time in years. No makeup. No control, just raw, unfiltered discomfort. Mora, she said quietly. I didn't speak. She stepped aside, silently inviting me in. I didn't accept. Where's Travis? I asked, voice sharp. She hesitated. He's out. Why are you here? I held up a printed copy of the loan application. Her eyes dropped to the paper. I watched her throat tighten as she swallowed. I don't know what that is, she said too quickly. You do, I replied, unmoving. You always know. You just pretend not to. That's your talent. Mora, this is getting out of hand. No, I cut her off. This got out of hand when your son committed identity theft, when he tried to sink me in debt to cover up his mess. When you stood there and let him lie, and didn't stop him. She folded her arms across her chest. But her stance wasn't strong. It was defensive. A child's attempt to shield from blame. We were just trying to keep the family afloat, she said. I took a step closer. No? You were trying to protect him. Always him. She looked away. Do you even know what he's done? I asked, my voice rising. Do you realize how far he went this time? He signed my name, Mom. He used my social. He took out a loan. Using my records and didn't even bother to change the damn email. He wanted me to drown. And you were going to let me. Tears sprang to her eyes, but they didn't move me. Not anymore. I'd seen too many of them. And I'd learned they only came when she had something to lose. I didn't know, she whispered. You did, I said, voice trembling now. You just didn't care. Not enough. Then I dropped the second envelope. A cease and desist. This is official, I told her. From now on, everything goes through my attorney. If Travis doesn't retract that video and issue a formal apology, we press criminal charges. If you don't remove the house from the market immediately, we file for property fraud. And if either of you so much as use my name again, I will burn everything you've built to the ground. Her lip trembled. Please. No, I said firmly. You don't get to beg now. You already made your choice. I turned to walk away. She reached out, her voice breaking. You were supposed to be the strong one. I stopped at the edge of the steps and looked back at her. I am, I said. And that's why I'm walking away. The door clicked shut behind me. I didn't flinch. That night, I sent Dana everything. Every receipt, every message, every document. And when she replied, she didn't ask if I was ready. She said, let's bury them. The subpoena arrived in a thick white envelope, delivered, to the front desk of my office like it was just another piece of mail. My assistant brought it in with a confused expression, not knowing that what she was holding was the next detonation in a war I never asked for, but refused to lose. Inside, a copy of the complaint, official court paperwork, and a letter from Travis's attorney. He was countersuing for emotional distress, for reputational damage caused by false accusations. I read every line, my face cold, unmoving, my hands steady only because I had spent years learning how to hold myself together while everything around me crumbled. The irony was staggering. He had committed fraud. He had stolen from me, forged my signature, wrecked my name, and now he was the victim? I called Dana. Her voice didn't waver. We knew this was coming. It's a stunt, I muttered. She agreed. A last-ditch move. He's scrambling. But I wasn't rattled. Not anymore. Because I had something Travis never would. Proof. And patience. 2 days later, I walked into court for the first pre-hearing. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Like mosquitoes, the kind that made your skin crawl before you even sat down. I wore a navy suit, hair tied back. No makeup except the kind of lip color that says, I'm here to finish this. Across the aisle, Travis sat slouched in his chair, his lawyer whispering frantically beside him. He looked thinner, tired. Not the flashy, smug online persona he'd built with ring lights and borrowed bravado. This was real life. And in real life, image didn't matter. Evidence did. The judge entered, a small woman with sharp eyes and a voice like broken granite. Let's begin. Dana rose first, poised and unshakable. She handed over the USB with our entire timeline, bank transfers, text screenshots, the loan document with my forged signature and Travis's IP address. You'll see, she said, addressing the court calmly, that not only is Ms. Velasquez the rightful claimant, but that this countersuit is a deliberate attempt to deflect from the actual harm already done. I didn't look at Travis. I didn't need to. His lawyer stood next, stammering something about family misunderstandings and miscommunication. Miscommunication? Was forging a loan with someone's identity a typo now? The judge flipped through the first pages of the file. She didn't speak for a long time, but I watched the exact moment her eyebrows lifted. Page 5. The mortgage receipts. The ones with my name and routing numbers over 7 years. And then she looked up, straight at me. "Ms. Velasquez," she said. "You personally made these payments?" I did. Without legal claim to the property? At the time, I believed I was helping my family. I didn't think I needed legal claim. The room fell silent. And in that silence, I reclaimed something I hadn't felt in months. Power. When the hearing ended, Travis didn't look at me as he walked out. His steps were quicker. He was unraveling. The influencer mask had cracked, and beneath it was just a scared man in over his head. Later that week, I came home to find an envelope slipped under my apartment door. No name, no address. Just 2 words scribbled on the front in ink that had smudged from sweaty hands. "I'm sorry." Inside, a flash drive. It felt too familiar. I plugged it into my laptop with a mix of dread and curiosity. A video file blinked to life. Travis, sitting in his bedroom, unfiltered, unlit. Not for his followers, just for me. He didn't speak for 30 seconds, just breathed, slow and ragged. Then he finally said, "I don't know why I did it. Maybe because I thought I could get away with it. Maybe because I thought you'd never fight back. You always fixed everything before." He rubbed his face, eyes red. "But you didn't fix this. You fought me, and now everything's gone." He looked directly into the camera. Not with regret, not really, but with the haunting realization that the person he had underestimated had become the one who destroyed his delusion. He ended the video with a final line. "You're not who I thought you were, and maybe that's the problem." I deleted the video because I wasn't who they thought I was, and I never would be again. A week later, the countersuit was dropped, not because Travis had found remorse, but because the court deemed it frivolous. The judge's words echoed in my mind for days after. An attempt to use the justice system to mask personal accountability. And with that, it was back on me. My case. My name. My home. Dana and I worked into the nights, filing property claims, preparing identity theft charges, and assembling a formal complaint for damages. She asked if I wanted to press criminal charges. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because even now, some part of me was exhausted. Not just from the fight, from the realization that every person who said they loved me had been willing to watch me fall for their comfort. Then I remembered the moment Travis screamed in my office lobby, the look on my mother's face when she said, "You were supposed to be the strong one." And I realized something. Strength wasn't just surviving. Betrayal. It was responding with precision, with truth, with evidence, with grace that didn't mean surrender. That night, I sat at my window, the city glowing beneath me, and typed the final sentence into the closing statement we'd attached to the case. Let this be a warning to every person who thinks love excuses exploitation. It doesn't. And when you strip away blood and guilt, all that's left is accountability. I pressed save, then I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. This time, I don't just win. I finish it. 3 days before the final court date, I received a phone call that I almost didn't answer. It was a number I didn't recognize, local area code, but nothing familiar. I let it ring until the last second. Something inside, me twitching, unsettled. Then I picked up. Hello? There was a long pause on the other end. Then a voice I hadn't heard in weeks. Hi. It's Dad. The air in my apartment shifted, stilled. I stood by the window, the weight of silence, pressing against my chest. "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my voice as flat as possible. He cleared his throat. "Can we talk?" "Isn't that what we're doing?" He sighed. "Not like this. In person. Just us. Just us." Like there was still an us left. I should have said no. I should have hung up and protected the small piece I had managed to rebuild. But there was something in his voice. Not desperation, not authority. Something else. Maybe shame? Or maybe I needed to see for myself just how far he had fallen from the pedestal I used to place him on. We agreed to meet at a diner. Neutral ground. The kind with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like burnt hope. I arrived early and sat facing the door. He walked in 5 minutes late, wearing the same weathered jacket he always wore when he didn't know how to be a father. He slid into the booth across from me. No hug, no smile, just silence. When the waitress came, he ordered coffee. Black. I didn't get anything. I wanted to keep my hands empty, in case I needed to use them to hold myself together. He stared into his mug like it could offer answers. "I didn't know what your mother was doing at first," he said. "With the accounts, the money." I didn't blink. "You knew. You just didn't ask." He didn't deny it. I thought she was helping Travis. He needed help. And I didn't? He looked up then. Finally. There it was. The shame. The guilt. The hollow echo of a man who had convinced himself that standing by was somehow noble. "You always handled things. You never asked for anything." "That's the problem," I said, voice tightening. "I never asked, and you never noticed." He took a shaky breath. "You have every right to be angry." Angry? That word felt laughable. I wasn't just angry. I was gutted. I was betrayed. I was humiliated by the people who were supposed to protect me. "You sat there," I said, "while they called me a freeloader, while Travis forged my signature, while Mom funneled my money into his pocket, and you said nothing." He looked down again. His hands trembled slightly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Those 2 words. So small, so late. "I didn't come for an apology," I said. "I came to tell you that whatever happens in court, I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this because I finally understand who I'm dealing with." He nodded slowly. "We lost you, didn't we?" I stared at him, every memory of childhood flooding my mind. Baseball games, science fairs, the way he used to check under my bed for monsters. "You didn't lose me," I said. "You gave me away." And that was the truth. They hadn't misplaced me. They had made a conscious decision to choose comfort over confrontation, to support the easy son over the stable daughter. The waitress came back and refilled his coffee. We didn't speak for a long time after that. When I finally stood up, he reached for my hand. His fingers grazed mine, tentative, like he was reaching across a canyon that had taken years to carve. "Do you hate me?" he asked quietly. I paused. Let the question linger between us. "No," I said. "But I don't trust you, and I don't know if I ever will." His face crumpled slightly, and for the first time in my life, I saw the man behind the father. Not the protector, not the provider. Just a man who made too many wrong choices and ran out of time to fix them. I walked out of the diner and didn't look back. That night, I opened my laptop and read through Dana's final court brief. It was flawless. Every claim backed by receipts. Every argument grounded in law, not emotion, but one sentence stayed with me. "We are not seeking vengeance, we are seeking recognition." Recognition, that's all I had wanted. To be seen, to be heard. To be acknowledged as something more than a walking wallet or a fallback plan. The next morning, my inbox pinged with an email from HR. Miss Green. Subject, clearance update. Dear Maura, following recent events and the resolution of the formal review, we are pleased to inform you that your record has been cleared. You are reinstated to full status. Your professionalism throughout this situation has been noted and deeply respected. I exhaled, not because it was over, but because it meant that not everything had been taken from me. That afternoon, Travis's channel disappeared. All his videos, gone. His followers dropped by the thousands. His sponsors pulled out one by one. Public sentiment flipped. Fast. Brutal. Because people can smell the truth when it's laid bare, stripped of filters and performance. But even as the world turned on him, I didn't celebrate. Because this wasn't about dragging anyone down, it was about pulling myself back up. The day before court, Dana texted, "You ready?" I replied, "I've been ready my whole life, and I meant it, because this wasn't just the climax of a courtroom drama. It was the moment I reclaimed everything they tried to take from me." The courtroom was silent, except for the slow click of the judge's pen tapping against the desk. It wasn't a dramatic space. No towering ceilings or golden emblems, just pale walls, cheap carpet, and a kind of stale air that carried the weight of too many broken truths. I sat at the plaintiff's table, fingers folded in front of me, posture still and spine straight. My attorney, Dana, stood beside me, her voice cool and deliberate as she presented our final statements. Across the aisle, my mother stared straight ahead, cold, unreadable. Travis sat beside her, pretending to be calm, but his knee bounced under the table like a child waiting for punishment. My father? He wasn't there. I wasn't sure if he stayed away out of shame or strategy. Maybe both. When Dana handed the judge our full portfolio of evidence, bank transfers, signed affidavits, the forged loan documents, even the screenshots of the real estate listing, I watched the expression on the judge's face shift from skepticism to realization. It wasn't rage, it wasn't shock. It was that quiet, heavy recognition that someone in this room had been deeply wronged, and the law had the burden of putting it right. The judge took a long pause before speaking. "This is not just a civil matter of unpaid debt or forgery," he said slowly, eyes locked on my mother. "This is a sustained pattern of manipulation and financial abuse. From a daughter to a family? No. From a family to a daughter." That's when I felt it. That split-second shift in the room's energy. That moment when years of being unseen suddenly sharpened into full, painful visibility. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just breathed. The judge ruled in my favor. Full ownership of the property, restitution for stolen funds, and, perhaps, most importantly, a court-documented statement clearing my name. I was no longer a freeloader. I was no longer the villain in the story they tried to spin. I was, finally, the truth. Afterward, I stepped outside into the chill of a gray afternoon. Dana squeezed my shoulder once and left me standing alone on the courthouse steps. I looked up at the sky, clouds thick like unspoken words. But I felt light. Not because justice felt like revenge, it didn't, but because I had stopped asking for permission to be right. That evening, back at my apartment, I opened the last drawer in my filing cabinet and placed the final stamped documents inside. Everything that had happened, the payments, the silence, the betrayal, the war, it was there, archived, filed, done. I sat on the floor of my living room, watching the sun disappear behind buildings, and thought about the version of me from a year ago. The girl who worked late nights and wired money without complaint, who accepted being second. Who was afraid of losing people, even if those people never really saw her. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who had stood alone in a courtroom and faced her family, not to destroy them, but to finally stop letting them destroy her. This wasn't just about a house. It wasn't about money. It wasn't even about being believed. It was about reclaiming something deeper. My name, my identity, my peace. You see, betrayal from strangers hurts, but betrayal from blood? It carves holes you don't even know are bleeding until you're empty. My parents raised me to be strong, but only as long as my strength served them. The moment I set boundaries, I became the villain. The moment I asked for fairness, I was told I was selfish. The moment I stopped being silent, they called it war. But silence doesn't equal peace, and family doesn't equal loyalty. So if you're listening to this and you're holding on to someone who only claps when you're useful, let me tell you this. You do not owe your success to the people who only noticed you once they could longer use you. I used to believe family was sacred, untouchable, that no matter how bad it got, you had to stay. But here's the truth. Love without respect is manipulation. Obligation without recognition is exploitation. And loyalty without boundaries is self-destruction. You don't have to keep proving your worth to people committed to misunderstanding it. You can walk away. You can protect your peace, even if it makes you the villain in someone else's story. And when you do, you might find, just like I did, that freedom doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it just comes with silence. And that silence, it's the beginning of healing. This chapter is done. The war is over. And I didn't win because I fought harder. I won because I stopped fighting for the wrong people. So what happens next? I build. I rest. I breathe. And maybe, just maybe, I let new people into my life. People who don't need to be convinced to value me. People who don't weaponize my care. People who give, without taking first. Because if this story taught me anything, it's this. You can't heal in the same place that broke you, so choose better. Choose you. And if this story moved you, if you felt even a flicker of your own reflection, in my words, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. There are more stories coming. More moments of truth. More voices like mine, and maybe like yours. Fighting to be heard. Let's keep telling them, because someone, somewhere, needs to know they're not alone, and together, we'll make sure they don't forget that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival.